Commander Jihoon pressed his palm against the cool metal of the observation deck, watching distant stars transform into streaks of silver light as the UES Harmony cut through hyperspace. The convoy of 12 ships stretched out behind them, like a chain of glowing pearls against the cosmic darkness. Each vessel carried precious cargo, not weapons or rare metals, but something far more valuable to humanity: hope for new worlds. "Sir, we're approaching the edge of charted space," reported Navigation Officer Kyung-hee, her fingers dancing across the holographic display. The star charts showed vast expanses of unexplored systems beyond their current position, territories that no human had ever set foot in. Captain Minjun emerged from the passenger decks, his datapad glowing with manifests and family profiles. "The families are settling in well," he told Ji-hoon with a slight smile. "Little Sumin Kim keeps asking when she'll see her first alien sunset. Her parents brought 3 cases of earth soil just so she can plant flowers on their new world." Ji-hoon chuckled softly. The innocence of children always amazed him. 8-year-old Sumin had no idea they were venturing into the unknown, possibly dangerous territories. To her, this was just an adventure to a place where she could have her own garden. "Engineer Hyunwoo's been working with the terraforming equipment," Minjun continued. "His boy Jae-hyun follows him everywhere, asking a million questions about atmospheric processors and water recyclers. That kid's going to be an engineer just like his father." Down in the medical bay, Dr. Yoonji ran final checks on the colony's medical supplies. Her research team had spent months preparing for every possible scenario they might encounter on their new world. Diseases, injuries, even potential contact with unknown life forms. They were ready for anything. Or so they believed. The convoy represented humanity's latest expansion into the galaxy. Unlike the old days of desperate escape from an overcrowded Earth, these colonists traveled with purpose and preparation. They carried advanced technology, sustainable farming equipment, and most importantly the accumulated wisdom of dozens of successful colonies established over the past century. 3,000 light-years away, in the heart of the galaxy where ancient stars burned with cold fire, the Kaleth Empire maintained its iron grip on over 10,000 worlds. Their capital planet Dominion Prime sat like a mechanical tumor in space, surrounded by orbital platforms that could crack planets with a single focused beam. Overlord Vextar stood before a massive holographic map of the galaxy, his 4 arms crossed behind his chitinous back. Red markers indicated Kaleth-controlled systems, which dominated nearly every sector of civilized space. His species had evolved from predatory insects on a world where only the strongest survived, and they had brought that philosophy to the stars. "Overlord," announced his Lieutenant Zakun, approaching with measured steps, "our deep space sensors have detected new energy signatures in Sector 847. 12 vessels moving in formation, unknown configuration." Vextar's compound eyes glittered with interest. "Unknown configuration? That's impossible. Every spacefaring species in this galaxy bows to the Kaleth Empire. The signatures don't match any known designs in our databases," Zakun continued, his voice carrying a hint of uncertainty. "They appear to be heading toward the uncolonized systems beyond the rim." The Overlord's mandibles clicked together, in what passed for Kaleth amusement. "Perhaps some forgotten colony ship from the outer territories. No matter, send the Dominion's fist to investigate. Commander Vel-Ask knows the protocol." The protocol was simple and had remained unchanged. For 3 millennia, any unknown vessel encountered in space was given one chance to surrender and submit to Kaleth authority. Resistance meant immediate destruction. It was a system that had worked perfectly for generations of galactic dominance. The massive Kaleth, Dreadnought Dominion's fist, powered up its fusion drives, its hull bristling with weapons that could turn entire moons into asteroid fields. Commander Vel-Ask reviewed his orders with cold satisfaction. Another routine patrol, another opportunity to remind the galaxy who ruled the stars. His crew of 200 Kaleth warriors prepared their equipment with practiced efficiency. Boarding pods loaded with capture nets and neural stunners. Interrogation chambers equipped with devices designed to break the will of any species they had encountered. Data archives ready to catalog a new subject race for the Empire. The Dreadnought's navigation computer calculated the intercept course for the unknown vessels, Within 6 hours, they would drop out of hyperspace and make contact with these mysterious travelers. Velarsk expected the encounter to follow the same pattern as countless others: terror, surrender, and submission to the Kaleth Empire. None of them knew they were about to meet humanity for the first time. None of them understood that they were approaching a species that valued their children above their own lives. The Kaleth Empire was about to learn that some lines should never be crossed, and some species fight harder when their young are threatened. The space around the human convoy suddenly erupted in flashes of twisted light as massive alien ships materialized from hyperspace. The Dominion's fist appeared first, its dark hull stretching over 2 kilometers long, bristling with weapon ports that glowed like angry red eyes. 6 smaller Kaleth destroyers followed, forming a perfect hunting formation around the 12 human vessels. On the bridge of the UES Harmony, alarms screamed across every control panel. Communications Officer Sun Wu's hands flew over his console as he tried to make sense of the readings. "Sir, I'm detecting massive energy signatures. These ships are armed beyond anything in our databases." Admiral Sunho, who had been reviewing colonization schedules just moments before, now found himself staring at the tactical display, showing their convoy completely surrounded. His military training kicked in immediately, but his orders were clear. This was a peaceful mission carrying civilian families. "Open all communication channels," Sunho commanded, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Broadcast on all frequencies." The communication array of the Harmony sent out signals across every known bandwidth, from basic radio waves to quantum entanglement transmissions. Sunho stepped forward to the main transmitter, knowing that these next words might determine the fate of everyone aboard the convoy. "Unknown vessels, this is Admiral Sunho of the United Earth Space Command. We are peaceful explorers carrying civilian families to establish a new colony. We come in peace and request dialogue. Please respond." The bridge fell silent as they waited for a response. Seconds stretched into minutes, while the alien ships maintained their positions like hunters circling wounded prey. Their hulls were covered in what looked like organic plating, as if the ships themselves were living creatures rather than constructed vessels. Aboard the Dominion's Fist, Commander Velarsk received the human transmission with cold amusement. His translation systems quickly decoded the primitive language, and he shared the message with his bridge crew. The sound of Kaleth clicking mandibles filled the air, their equivalent of laughter. "Peaceful explorers," Velarsk repeated in his own language. "They all say that, makes no difference." Without another word, he activated the ship's tractor beam systems. Massive energy projectors extended from the Kaleth dreadnought, casting invisible nets of force around each human vessel. The Harmony shuddered as alien technology seized control of their engines and navigation systems. "Admiral, we're caught in some kind of tractor field," reported Chief Engineer Hansel, panic creeping into his voice. "I can't break free. They're pulling us toward their ship." On the colony transport New Dawn, Captain Eugen watched helplessly as her ship was dragged toward one of the smaller Kaleth destroyers. In the passenger compartments, families pressed against the windows, staring in wonder and growing fear at the alien vessels that had captured them. 8-year-old Minji held her teddy bear tight against her chest as she looked out the porthole with her parents. "Daddy, are those the aliens we're going to meet?" she asked her father Dongyun, her voice filled with innocent curiosity rather than fear. Dongyun wrapped his arm around his daughter, exchanging worried glances with his wife. "Yuna, I don't know, sweetheart, but remember what we practiced. Stay close to Mommy and Daddy no matter what happens." The boarding process began with mechanical precision that spoke of countless similar operations. Kaleth cutting beams sliced through, human hull plating like paper, creating perfect circular openings. Armored figures poured through the breaches, tall insectoid creatures with chitinous plates covering their bodies and weapons that hummed with lethal energy. The Kaleth soldiers moved through the human ships with practiced efficiency, herding bewildered civilians into groups. Their armor was a dark green color that seemed to absorb light, and their helmets contained multiple visual sensors that tracked every movement of their captives. Dr. Jisoo found herself separated from her research team as the aliens divided the prisoners by some criteria she couldn't understand. She tried to maintain her medical bag, knowing that people might be injured, but a Kaleth soldier knocked it from her hands with the butt of his energy rifle. In the detention bay of the Kaleth destroyer, families huddled together as more prisoners were brought in. The room was designed to hold captives from various species, with adjustable environmental controls and containment fields. To human eyes, it looked like a prison from a nightmare. Minji stayed pressed between her parents as they were forced into the holding area. The little girl's eyes were wide with confusion and growing fear as she took in the alien surroundings. The walls seemed to pulse with a faint bioluminescent glow, and the air carried strange chemical scents that made her nose. Commander Verlask descended to the detention level to personally oversee the processing of these new captives. He studied the humans with professional interest, noting their physical characteristics and behavioral patterns. They seemed remarkably fragile compared to most species the Kaleth had encountered. "Begin standard interrogation procedures," he ordered his subordinates. "I want to know where they came from and what other colonies exist in their territory." The interrogation process was designed to break down resistance through psychological pressure and demonstrations of Kaleth power. When the human adults continued to cluster protectively around their children, instead of immediately submitting, Verlask decided a more direct approach was needed. He approached the family group where Minji stood with her parents. The child's frightened whimpers as she saw the towering alien commander seemed to irritate him. In Kaleth culture, weakness was met with immediate dominance displays. Without warning, Verlask raised his armored gauntlet and struck the child across the face with calculated force. The blow sent 8-year-old Minji crashing to the metal floor, her small body crumpling like a broken doll. Blood immediately began pooling beneath her head, where it had struck the unforgiving surface. Her mother Yuna's scream echoed through the detention bay as Dr. Jisoo broke free from the guards and rushed to the fallen child's side. The moment that would change everything had just occurred. The Kaleth had crossed a line they didn't even know existed. The quantum communication relay station on Luna received the emergency transmission at 14:47 Greenwich Standard Time. The automated systems immediately flagged it as Priority Alpha, the highest classification reserved for threats to human civilian populations. Within seconds, the message bounced through quantum entanglement networks to Earth Command, Mars Defense Station, and every major human installation across 50 star systems. Admiral Sunho's voice crackled through the speakers in the Earth Command Situation Room, carrying pain and barely controlled rage across impossible distances. "Earth Command, this is Admiral Sunho aboard UES Harmony. Our convoy has been captured by unknown hostile forces. Civilian casualties confirmed. They struck a child. 8-year-old Minji Kim. Request immediate military assistance." President Seung-ho stood perfectly still as the recording played, his weathered hands gripping the edge of the conference table. Around him, the most powerful leaders of humanity sat in stunned silence. Fleet Admiral Jiwon's coffee cup trembled in her hands. Defense Minister Chanho's face had turned pale as winter frost. The silence stretched for nearly a minute after the transmission ended. Then General Tae-hyung, the hero of the Titan Wars and the man who had held the line against the robot uprising of 2387, spoke in a voice that could cut diamond. "They hurt one of our children," he said simply, and those 6 words carried the weight of 3 billion years of human evolution. Every instinct that had driven humanity from the caves of Earth to the stars suddenly focused on a single purpose. President Seung-ho looked around the table at faces that had seen humanity's darkest hours and brightest triumphs. These were leaders who had guided the species through civil wars, alien plagues, and the near-extinction event on Europa. But none of them had ever seen such cold determination in each other's eyes. "General Tae-hyung," Seung-ho said, his voice carrying the absolute authority of humanity's highest office. "I'm authorizing Code Black mobilization. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier we have. Bring our people home." "Sir, are you certain?" asked Fleet Admiral Jiwon, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. "Code Black has never been used. We're talking about mobilizing the entire human military across 50 star systems." "They struck an 8-year-old girl," Seung-ho replied, and his words fell like stones into still water. Yes, Admiral, I'm certain. The emergency alert that went out across human space was simple and direct. No political speeches, no complex explanations, just 11 words that would unite humanity like nothing in their history. Hostile aliens have captured our people and hurt our children. Respond immediately. On the orbital shipyards around Mars, Captain Wonho was reviewing maintenance schedules for his battle cruiser, Indomitable, when the alert came through. The massive vessel had been in dock for 3 months, receiving upgrades to its plasma cannon arrays and shield generators. Wonho read the message twice, then activated the ship's emergency systems. "All hands, this is the captain," his voice boomed through the ship's communication system. "We have a code black mobilization. I want full power in 30 minutes and all weapons online in 60. Any questions?" The response from his crew was immediate and unanimous. "No, sir." The Indomitable roared to life as its fusion reactors came online ahead of schedule. Maintenance crews worked with desperate efficiency to complete installations that would normally take days. In the weapon bays, Chief Petty Officer Seojun supervised the loading of plasma torpedoes, each one capable of cracking a small moon. Across the solar system, the same scene played out on hundreds of ships. The destroyer, Retribution. Under Lieutenant Hayen's command, finished loading her weapons in record time. The missile cruiser, Vengeance, conducted engine tests that shattered windows on nearby space stations. Even the ancient dreadnought Constitution, veteran of the colony wars, powered up systems that hadn't been active in decades. But it wasn't just military vessels that answered the call. On the mining station Ceres Alpha, engineer Kyung-min received the alert while calibrating ore processing equipment. Within an hour, he had converted the station's industrial lasers into weapons capable of cutting through battleship armor. Civilian transports requested military-grade weapon packages. Cargo haulers volunteered to carry troops and supplies. The response spread beyond the Sol system like wildfire through dry grass. On the agricultural world of New Sol, farmers welded armor, plating to their crop dusters, and loaded them with mining explosives. The luxury liner Star Princess discharged her passengers at the nearest port and reported for military conversion. Even the deep space research vessel, Discovery, studying cosmic phenomena light years from the nearest inhabited world, changed course toward the rally point. Dr. Minju, director of the Lunar Research Institute, watched the mobilization through her office window as ship after ship departed the lunar shipyards. She had spent her career studying human psychology and behavior, but she had never seen anything like this. An entire species moving with single-minded purpose, driven by an instinct older than civilization itself. On Earth, recruitment centers that had been quiet for decades suddenly filled with volunteers. Retired veterans reported for duty without being asked. College students abandoned their studies to enlist. Parents kissed their children goodbye and headed to transport stations, knowing they might never return, but unable to ignore the call when one of humanity's children had been hurt. The quantum communication networks buzzed with coordination messages as the largest military force in human history began to assemble. Fleet Admiral Jiwon established the rally point at Wolf 359, a system chosen for its strategic location and extensive supply depots. Ship captains updated their navigation computers with intercept courses. Marines checked their weapons and armor with grim determination. In the deepest vaults of Earth's military archives, weapons that had been sealed away since the last interstellar war were brought out and prepared for deployment. Antimatter warheads that could turn planets into debris fields, gravity manipulators that could crush enemy ships like tin cans, nano-weapon swarms designed to disassemble alien technology at the molecular level. The message was clear and would soon echo across the galaxy. Humanity's children were not to be touched. The species that had conquered death, distance, and their own violent nature was about to remind the universe why they had survived when so many others had fallen to extinction. The Calith Empire was about to discover what happened when you hurt a human child. The Calith garrison on Proxima 7 had stood unopposed for 800 years. Built into the rocky cliffs of a dead world, the fortress monitored hyperspace routes and served as a symbol of eternal Calith dominance. Commander Zethrak had grown comfortable in his posting. spending his days reviewing tribute reports from subjugated worlds and his nights in the victory halls celebrating past conquests. That comfort shattered when the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace like vengeful ghosts. The attack began at dawn, though dawn on Proxima 7 was merely a slightly brighter shade of grey. Commander J1's assault fleet hung in perfect formation above the fortress. 12 destroyers, 4 cruisers, and the massive battleship Retribution's Edge. But these weren't the gleaming ships of exploration that had carried families to new worlds. These vessels wore scars of hasty modifications, bristling with weapons that had been installed with one purpose: to make the Caleth pay. "Target acquired," reported Weapons Officer Su-Yung from her station aboard the Retribution's Edge. "Fortress shields are active, but our scans show structural weaknesses in sections 4 through 7. Commander J1 studied the tactical display with cold calculation. His sister, Captain Neon, commanded the orbital bombardment group, her ships positioned to rain fire on any attempt at escape. They had trained together at the Sol Military Academy, competed against each other in war games, and now they would fight together for something more important than any military exercise. "Remember," J1 announced over the fleet communication channel, 8-year-old Minji is still in alien hands. Every shot we fire, every risk we take, brings us closer to getting her and the other prisoners home." The first strike came without warning or ultimatum. Human philosophy had changed in the weeks since the convoy's capture, where once they offered diplomacy and negotiation, now they delivered justice with plasma fire and kinetic rounds. The fortress. Shields flared brilliant blue as the initial bombardment struck home. Caleth defensive batteries returned fire, their energy beams reaching out like angry red fingers toward the human ships. But the humans had studied 3,000 years of Caleth tactical doctrine in just 30 days, learning from every battle record they could find. "Evasive pattern Delta 7, Captain Neon commanded her squadron. The human ships danced through the defensive fire with a grace that surprised even their pilots. Unlike the Caleth, who relied on overwhelming firepower and intimidation, humans had learned to fight smart. Their ships moved like a pack of wolves, each vessel covering another while staying in constant motion. Below on the fortress surface, Caleth soldiers scrambled to defensive positions as the orbital bombardment intensified. They had faced rebellions before, but this was different. The humans weren't trying to negotiate or demand better treatment. They were systematically dismantling every defensive system with surgical precision. Commander Zethrak watched from his command center as external sensors went dark one by one. "Impossible," he clicked in the Caleth language. "No species has ever pressed an attack like this. They should have sued for peace by now." His tactical officer, a young Caleth named Velhun, studied the readings with growing alarm. "Sir, their attack patterns don't match any known doctrine. They're taking casualties but continuing to advance. It's as if they don't care about losses." That was the moment Zethrak began to understand he was facing something unprecedented. The Caleth had built their empire on the foundation that all species valued their own survival above everything else. But these humans seemed to operate on different principles entirely. The breakthrough came when Major Chanwu's Marines launched their assault pods directly at the fortress walls. The drop pods screamed through the thin atmosphere like meteors, their heat shields glowing white-hot as they descended. Caleth defenders concentrated their fire on the incoming pods, expecting to see them explode in brilliant fireballs. Instead, the pods deployed adaptive armor plating that absorbed and redirected energy weapon strikes. Advanced human engineering, developed in secret laboratories after the convoy's capture, had produced equipment specifically designed to counter known Caleth weapons. Major Chanwu was the first Marine to set foot on Caleth soil, and his boots left burn marks in the alien. Metal flooring. Behind him came 200 of humanity's finest warriors, each one carrying personal motivation that went beyond duty or honor. They fought for a little girl who should have been playing with toys instead of lying unconscious in an alien medical. The Caleth defenders had never faced close-quarters combat like this. Their tactics relied on long-range intimidation and overwhelming force. But humans had evolved as persistence hunters, creatures who could track prey across continents and never give up. Those ancient instincts served them well in the narrow corridors of the fortress. Sergeant Minho cornered a group of Kaleth soldiers in what appeared to be their armory. Unlike the aliens' energy weapons, his assault rifle fired solid ammunition, chunks of depleted uranium that punched through Kaleth armor like paper. "This is for the kid," he said quietly as he advanced, and the Kaleth soldiers understood that they faced something beyond their experience. The battle for Proxima 7 lasted 18 hours. When the fortress finally fell, not a single Kaleth defender had survived to surrender. The humans had shown no mercy to the species that had made targeting civilians their standard practice. From his command ship in the core systems, Overlord Vextar received reports of the defeat with growing disbelief. Proxima 7 had been followed by the fall of Kepler Station, then the destruction of the garrison fleet at Wolf's Bane. Each defeat came with the same pattern: humans striking with calculated fury, taking casualties, but never retreating, fighting, as if their very survival depended on victory. "How many ships have they lost?" Vextar demanded of his intelligence officer. "Over 60 vessels destroyed, Overlord. But they keep coming. Our analysts estimate they have mobilized their entire military force." Vexitar's compound eyes glittered with something approaching respect mixed with growing fear. In 3 millennia of galactic dominance, the Kaleth had never encountered a species willing to sacrifice everything for the sake of their young. They were discovering that humanity's greatest weakness, their emotional attachment to children, was also their most terrifying strength. The war had only just begun, but already the galaxy was learning a new truth: never hurt a human child. The Kaleth homeworld of Dominion Prime had never seen an enemy fleet in its orbital space. For 3,000 years, the planet had been the untouchable heart of galactic civilization's greatest empire, protected by massive defense platforms and surrounded by the mightiest war fleets in known space. The planet's surface gleamed with crystal spires and metal cities that stretched toward the stars, monuments to Kaleth superiority over every other species. That changed when humanity arrived. The human armada emerged from hyperspace in waves, each group appearing with mathematical precision until nearly 400 ships surrounded the Kaleth homeworld. Admiral Sunho stood on the bridge of his flagship, Terra's Wrath, watching as his fleet commanders reported ready status. These weren't the same peaceful exploration vessels that had carried families to new worlds months ago. These were ships, forged in the fires of righteous anger, carrying weapons designed specifically to end the Kaleth Empire. Captain Wonho's battlecruiser, Indomitable, held position at the fleet's center, its plasma cannons charged and ready. The destroyer, Vengeance. Under Commander Hyunsik maintained formation with a dozen sister ships, their missile tubes loaded with warheads that could crack continents. Even civilian vessels had joined the final battle, cargo haulers converted to troop transports, mining ships carrying planet cracker explosives, luxury liners refitted as hospital ships for the rescued prisoners. On the planet's surface, emergency alarms wailed through every Kaleth city as their people looked up to see the sky filled with human warships. The sight was impossible, unthinkable, yet undeniably real. Enemy vessels hung over their world like birds of prey, each one representing humanity's promise to bring their children home. Admiral Sunho activated the fleet's main communication array, broadcasting on every frequency the Kaleth used. His voice carried across space and into every building on Dominion Prime, reaching the ears of citizens who had never imagined their empire could fall. "This is Admiral Sunho of the United Earth Space Command. You took our people from a peaceful convoy. You separated families. You hurt our child." His words were calm and measured, but they carried the weight of an entire species' determination. "I am authorized to offer you this one chance. Surrender now and return our people unharmed, or we will show you what happens when you threaten human young." In the Imperial Command Center deep beneath the planet's surface, Overlord Vextar stared at tactical displays that showed the impossible. Hundreds of human ships surrounded his world, their weapon signatures strong enough to turn the entire planet into a debris field. His military advisors scuttled around the chamber, their mandibles clicking with barely controlled panic. "How many ships do they have?" Vextar demanded, though he could see the numbers himself. Nearly 400 confirmed vessels, Overlord, reported his fleet commander. Our orbital defense platforms are outnumbered 3-1. Our remaining fleet assets are scattered across 50 systems. We cannot match this force. Vextar's compound eyes fixed on the communication screen where Admiral Sunho's image waited for a response. The human looked tired but determined, wearing the expression of someone who had traveled too far and sacrificed too much to accept anything less than complete victory. They mobilized their entire civilization, whispered General Kethvar, studying intelligence reports. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier they possess, all for one convoy of civilians. That was the moment the Kaleth Empire truly understood what they had awakened. They had built their power on the belief that all species were fundamentally selfish, that fear could control any enemy. But humans operated on principles the Kaleth had never encountered. They would sacrifice everything for their children's safety. Aboard the medical ship, Healing Light, Dr. Jisoo carefully monitored 8-year-old Minji's vital signs as the little girl slept peacefully for the first time in weeks. The child's injuries had healed, but the trauma would take longer to fade. She had awakened that morning asking for her parents and wondering when she could go home. Soon, Dr. Jisoo had promised. Very soon. The Kaleth surrender came exactly 1 hour after Admiral Sunho's ultimatum expired. The transmission was brief and carried no trace of the arrogance that had characterized 3 millennia of galactic dominance. Human fleet, this is Overlord Vextar of the Kaleth Empire. We surrender unconditionally. Your people will be returned immediately and unharmed. Please, do not destroy our world. Captain Wonho received the transmission first and immediately forwarded it to Admiral Sunho. The flagship's bridge fell silent, as officers who had prepared for the galaxy's largest space battle instead witnessed the collapse of an empire. Some smiled with relief. Others wept for the comrades lost in the campaign to reach this moment. The prisoner exchange took place in orbit above Dominion Prime. Kaleth transport ships approached the human fleet under heavy guard, carrying the families who had been captured from the original convoy. Parents reunited with children in tearful embraces aboard human medical ships. Engineers and colonists who had dreamed of building new worlds were finally free to return home. Little Minji ran into her parents' arms in the shuttle bay of the Terra's Wrath, her mother Yuna crying tears of joy while her father Dongyun held them both tight. The little girl looked around at all the serious-faced soldiers and asked the question that would define humanity's future relationship with the galaxy. "Did all these people come to help me?" she asked innocently. "Yes, sweetheart," Admiral Sunho replied, kneeling down to her level. "They all came to bring you home." As the human fleet prepared for the long journey back to Earth, news of the Kaleth Empire's surrender spread across every inhabited world in the galaxy. Species that had lived under alien oppression for thousands of years looked up at the stars with new hope. The humans had proven that even the mightiest empire could fall when they crossed the wrong line. The message echoed through space stations and planetary capitals, carried by quantum transmissions and whispered in alien languages. Never harm a human child. The species from the small blue world had shown the galaxy what happened when someone threatened their young. Humanity had revealed that their capacity for love was matched only by their willingness to fight for those they cherished. The age of Kaleth dominance was over. A new chapter in galactic history had begun, written in the stars by a species that would cross any distance and face any enemy to protect their children. The convoy that had left Earth, carrying dreams of new worlds, returned home carrying something more valuable, proof that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their weapons, but their unbreakable bonds with each other. The Undersau.